See, there's one thing I was always fascinated with, and that is what if? And I guess that's the reason we all love alternative history, I would say. So let's let our imagination roam free. Let our imagination do some crazy parkour like moves. And here's how the story could go. Not once upon a time, but more like in the not so distant future. So, Xi Jinping has been diagnosed with a terminal illness in the early spring of 2027. He has no more time to waste, and his plan, which was supposed to be completed in 2029, is already in effect. The conflict in Ukraine is done. A close staff member who subsequently committed suicide while televising his last words shot Putin in the head with an RPG when he was sheltering in his hiding location. I guess it was a bunker, where he always is, right? And at the same time, Russia is in the midst of a civil war. At the same time, SBU-trained Black Thunder, a Pan-African paramilitary group allied with the West, abducted the president of Burkina Faso for God knows what reasons. And that is far from everything. If a new Russian dictator prevails in the conflict with the Russian Freedom Legion and other Russian allied forces, Cuban volunteers have been prepared in Pyongyang to take over Russia alongside him. Xi Jinping will evade Taiwan before regaining Vladivostok and other areas. At the same time, the United States has already conquered Panama, and U.S. airborne forces mixed with a company of Taiwanese Marines are preparing to be dropped in Greenland. But why, you're asking yourself, why for crying out loud? I know it's totally crazy, but is it really that the concept I came up with sounds more like a hypothetical scenario exercise than a true possibility? I am fully aware that it is insane, but you know what? The Orange Monster is as well. Look what is happening now. It's like a purge time. Like LA looks much different than Moscow today. So I don't think I exaggerated that much. Actually, you know what? It's totally possible. There are a lot of insane ideas in history. Consider Franz Rademacher's idea for Madagascar. Apparently, the wild beliefs weren't exclusive to Nazi Germany. Just like his Muscovite counterpart, Donald Trump is constantly seeking more. And listen, he is interested in Taiwanese industry, not in Taiwanese people. Now let's talk about that. Well, industry estimates indicate that about 300,000 people were working in Taiwan's semiconductor sector in 2021. Employees from the integrated circuit or IC design and manufacturing sectors are included in this figure. In 2020, IC design employed almost 50,000 people, while IC manufacturing employed over 83,000, a steady increase from prior years. Businesses like TCMC are compelled to hire thousands of new employees annually, like 88,000 new hires in 2022, and make large investments in training and talent development programs in collaborations with academic institutions due to the industry's persistent skills shortage. In conclusion, over 300,000 people were employed in Taiwan's semiconductors industry during the most recent era, and it is expected that employment would increase even further in the years to come due to continuous expansion and talent need. Furthermore, everything could be altered by China's invasion. What is Trump prepared to do then? Construct more Trump towers? Can we speculate that behind Trump's idea of buying or occupying Panama, Denmark, and/or Canada is a weird idea to have a tax-free zone where refugees from Taiwan can continue making semiconductors if China invades the island and Taiwanese population and their main industry have to be relocated? Pointing to concerns for both domestic and global security, Trump has openly stated his desire to take control of the Panama Canal and Greenland, an autonomous Danish province. So, it's Europe. He has emphasized strategic control over these areas and presented his actions as essential to both international freedom and U.S. security. He also made controversial claims about making Canada the 51st state in the Union, implying that doing so would have economic advantages like less taxes and more commercial opportunities. Well, no thank you. However, Canadian officials have strongly objected to these claims. According to the Industrial Technology Research Institute, or ITRI, the Taiwanese semiconductor sector is expected to generate around 6.3 trillion US, around, no, 6. What is this? 6.3 trillion, which is around 210 billion US in output by 2025. Strong results in the integrated circuit, IC design, and manufacturing industries are the main drivers of this notable growth of more than 19% over the prior year. For instance, according to the World Bank, Greenland's GDP in 2021 was estimated to be at 3.24 billion US dollars. Until then, the economy has grown moderately, with yearly GDP growth rates about 1% till 2023. And in light of this pattern, Greenland's GDP is projected to reach slightly more than US 3.3 billion in 2025. And that is exactly why the concept of invading a sovereign nation that Trump can control in order to relocate semiconductor factories isn't all that insane if you believe that every action he takes is motivated by economic, pure profit. And it seems that Taiwan is actually okay with that because they wouldn't mind going elsewhere. Not at all. These guys are good to go. Taiwan is a vital global center for the production of semiconductors, where firms such as TSMC hold a leading position. And in order to reduce risks, Taiwan and its semiconductor companies have been actively contemplating and putting diversification plans into practice, such as moving or expanding manufacturing outside of Taiwan in response to growing tensions and the prospect of a Chinese invasion. Both historically and via continued technological cooperation, the Dutch have been instrumental in the growth and prosperity of Taiwan's semiconductor industry. Established in 1987 as a joint venture between the Dutch electronics giant Philips and the Taiwanese government, TSMC is currently the largest contract chip maker in the world. I mean, that makes sense. That's why relocation is probably on Trump's mind. I mean, along with the Taiwanese government, Philips was a founding shareholder and contributed money, technology, and patents, convincing additional investors and supplying the technical know-how required to establish TSMC as a pure-play foundry strategy that would subsequently transform the global semiconductor industry, were made possible in large part by Philips' involvement. The Netherlands is a global leader in the semiconductor sector, but unlike Taiwan, which specializes in large-scale chip fabrication or foundry manufacture, its expertise is in equipment production, chip design, and component invention. In part to guarantee supply chain security and lessen reliance on Taiwan in the face of geopolitical threats, nations such as the United States have provided incentives to Taiwanese semiconductor businesses to construct factories locally. Some Central American nations like Costa Rica have tax-free areas and financial incentives that are enticing to the semiconductor manufacturing sector and other industries, making them desirable nearshoring locations for businesses looking for alternatives to Asia. But if you already have Guantanamo, nothing can be too strange. I'm saying we are talking about Trump here. So why not Taiwanese in Greenland? Yes, it does sound like a complete science fiction, but what do you expect from a guy who wants to build casinos in Gaza? Although Greenland is strategically significant for Arctic security and has a small population, it lacks infrastructure and a business climate that will support the production of semiconductors. That would not, however, prevent Trump from accomplishing an objective somewhat more beneficial than the invasion of Grenada. There, he might always argue, Marxism rose. In actuality, rather than acquiring territory, the United States and Taiwan are actually actively attempting to strengthen the resilience of the semiconductor supply chain, notably by offering relocation incentives within the United States. Well, at least nobody's going to accuse Denmark of, harboring communism or something like that. Even so, we're dealing about the incredible Trump, and nothing is too radical or shocking in his universe. So, as a conclusion, there is no concrete evidence to support this bonkers idea that Trump's territorial aspirations are related to the establishment of tax-free zones for the relocation of Taiwanese semiconductors in the event of crisis. Trump's claimed justifications are more about economic advantages and national security than they are about the semiconductor industry's safety. Instead of using territorial invasions or occupations, the semiconductor industry's strategic relocation activities are more obviously focused on relationships and incentives within already existing allied nations. Well, in any case, I'm just as shocked as I was when Donnie was elected president for the first time. Even Taiwanese on Greenland don't sound all that crazy compared to that scene in which the villain from real life takes over the White House. What can or cannot surprise you is completely your choice. That's why, as always, don't just read or listen to anything outlandish as this. You know how to handle different scenarios, so stay selective. Bye-bye.